Tell us about your history and your involvement with sports and athletics. It sounds like you've been interested in that for a very long time.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Mississippi. I grew up out in the country. I grew up, I had the best childhood ever. My grandfather took me hunting and fishing. I grew up kind of country girl in the land and I loved it. It was fantastic. Very limited screen time, no social media, none of that stuff, no TVs. Which I was really blessed with. I grew up with a boy cousin, and I think that that's what kind of made me into like an athlete. I just grew up around a lot of boys playing sports my whole life. And so I had this passion and I had this desire to continue that on in college. And so I had a lot of fun. And I did grow up, I will say this, a little bit on the heavier side. So like rewind a little bit. I was adopted as a child. I was not breastfed. I don't really know a lot of my prenatal history. So, and that will come into play in a second. So I was a heavier kid growing up. Anything about the South, we all know the food in the South is very indulgent, very good, high fat, high sugar. My parents did great. They did the best they could with the information they had, but I wouldn't have said it was a quote unquote healthy diet. So anyway, I went into college, a good athlete, but definitely on the heavier side. And I just knew I started to know something was kind of amiss my junior year of college. I'd never really had any issues kind of like playing or anything, but I started first noticing issues with my cycle. So that was kind of the first red flag that I had was, okay, like my cycle started to skip. I started to have like some of the hormonal symptoms that women start to express, and cystic acne, some of my hair was falling out. Like it was just, I started not to feel good. I started to get really oily skin. Just things were like, ugh, I just wasn't feeling like top notch. I was still playing fine. And I think probably the athleticism like had tamped or like kept this down and masked a lot of these symptoms for years and years and years. But I was still probably 30, 45 pounds overweight. And so I went to the nurse on campus and I said, the nurse practitioner, I said, hey, something's up. Like my cycle's gone. Like, I don't know what's going on. And, the typical thing at that time was, well, it's just because you're an athlete, like you're running a lot, you play all these games, you lift weights, you probably just need some birth control, then we can kind of figure it out. So they put me on birth control. That was the first line of defense against this. And no other things. They didn't even take labs, which I look back now and I'm like, holy moly, no labs were even pulled at that time, my junior year. So I got on birth control. That didn't really kind of mask some things for a couple years, didn't really do anything much for me overall. Definitely didn't lose weight. If anything, gained some. I did notice though, I did have started to pique my interest in nutrition because I did notice when I started eating a little bit better, I noticed, okay, I feel a little better. The acne will stay away. Like I feel a little sharper. I play a little bit better. And that's originally what got me interested into dietetics and nutrition. And I had no idea that dietetics was clinical. I had no idea I'd end up working in chronic disease. I just knew it affected my performance. And so I started studying to be a dietitian, and kind of fast forward a bit, I got my residency at a hospital down in Florida at VA Bay Pines. I'm still having all these hormonal issues. They're progressively getting worse. They got way, way worse after my senior year of college. Once I stopped athletics, I was still I was still trying to keep up with workouts, but it was nowhere near these 2-a-days, these 90-minute games. It was more or less just a 30-minute run here and there, maybe a 15, 20-minute weightlifting cycle. So you can imagine whatever symptoms I was masking with the excessive exercise have now kind of come on full force. And so I'm working as a brand new dietitian at this hospital, and these symptoms just hit me like a brick wall. I gained probably 25 pounds within a couple months of my first year as a dietitian. And I'm getting progressively more brain fog, more sluggish. I'm getting worse acne. I look back at pictures and my face was just so inflamed and I was so puffy and I was having to take naps. I can remember like feeling like I needed a nap every day around lunch, just horrific. It was just a struggle. Every day was a struggle for me to just feel good. I was newly married pretty soon thereafter. And I would just felt really awful. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out like, why is this happening? I'm a dietitian. I'm following At this point, I'd made pretty significant changes in my diet. Like I was pretty well following the dietitian recommendations of like eating whole grains, a lot of beans, a lot of like the things. And I'm still like getting worse and gaining more and more weight. And so get married and I go see an OBGYN because I know at this point, like would really like to start thinking about children, but I'm still having like no cycle and I'm on birth control, but I want off and all these things. And the OBGYN like immediately goes, oh, well, you have PCOS. Like I don't even need to take blood work. They did and eventually confirmed it, but and said you have PCOS. We need to check your thyroid, do all these things and said you need to be on metformin and spironolactone and kind of the typical PCOS treatment. And I was very frustrated. I was like, well, how did this get missed? Like nobody has told me this. I was really frustrated because I straight up asked him like, well, what can I do besides pharmaceuticals? Oh, there's nothing. Like you're going to need fertility treatments, the whole 9 yards. And I remember walking out of that was a pivotal day in my life because I remember walking out of that OBGYN doctor's office and thinking, okay, like challenge accepted. I'm not going to let this beat me. This has taken 4 years of my life at this point. I'm sick of being sick and tired. I'm sick of this weight. I'm sick of the way I feel. I'm sick of not having any energy to like go do adventures or I feel good and I'm done. And that's when I really started diving headfirst into alternative therapies for treatments.
Wow. Can I ask you a quick question? As you're going through all of that, you mentioned you're getting trained, you're a dietitian. Did you still have any inkling of a thought that like diet is contributing to this? Or in your mind, were you like, oh, I'm already doing the perfect diet. This must be something else. This is genetics or something.
Yeah, I did think the whole time. So I would consider myself a little bit of a questioner just in general of rules in general. And I did think the whole time something's not right. I'm eating exactly the way I learned to eat as a dietitian. Why is this not helping? There's something off. Why am I not losing weight? I'm following exactly what I have been taught to teach people. I'm quote unquote supposed to be the professional in this, right? Like I'm supposed to be the food and nutrition professional on weight loss. Why am I doing exactly what I've been taught to teach others? Like this is supposed to be my career. Why can't I get this weight off? And so, yes, the whole time I had a bit of it was almost this like a bit of a sinking feeling or like a gut feeling. It wasn't a good feeling. Whatever it wasn't a good feeling. It was a little, I felt like an imposter. I'll say that much. I felt a little bit like it was a little bit of shame. It was a little bit of like frustration, kind of all the things mixed in of like, why can't I figure this out? I was also really young. Like I was like a 22, 21 at the time. And didn't know a lot, hadn't had a lot of experience. And so, yeah, I the whole time I had a lot of questions and I was really, I was searching for sure.
Wow. You used the word shame. That's what kind of I was thinking in the back of my mind. And yeah, not the same experience, but similar. You're a personal trainer, like myself, and I'm a nutrition coach, and I've done this for a long time. You're giving people the advice and telling them exactly what to do, and they're repeatedly failing and failing and failing. But you feel good kind of about yourself because, like, well, I told them what to do, and they just simply can't do it. It's a whole different thing if you're watching your own health kind of deteriorate, and you're doing all the things.
Yeah, it was. And it was especially frustrating because I was really feeling like conventional medicine, especially after the appointment with the OBGYN. I was really frustrated with the lack of options as well. I was like, well, this can't be it. Like this is all you're a board certified OB. Like that's all you have for me is metformin, like or spironolactone. Like this can't be the only solution. But you're absolutely right. And it's like one of those things where you're sitting there and you're talking to someone who's obese and struggling with their weight. And then, but you are also struggling with your weight. And so like they're crying, but you also want to cry. So it's like it's a very interesting dynamic. And I think I'm very glad for it though. I'll say that much because I believe that that time of my life, without that time of my life, I would not be where I am now. I believe that part of my testimony is 100% why I like have the experience to do what I'm doing now. But yeah, it wasn't an easy couple years for sure.